G'day everyone, Jeff with you for Tumultuous Tuesday. Well, that's what I'm calling it anyway. Whether it turns out that way or otherwise is yet to be seen, of course. But the ingredients are all there in the bowl, the mixing bowl, and should we see this, what do they call it, meaningful vote at whatever time, and Ash, I think, will fill us in on that if they've actually released a time. If this vote goes as expected, or at least as was expected this time yesterday, but I do note with some interest that there perhaps has been a little sweetener added to the deal, or at least a better terms to negotiate, according to what some of the news reports were saying this morning. And the pound reacted very, very violently, actually, this morning, but settled down thereafter. So I'm not 100% sure what this is all about, to be fair, whether she's, Theresa May, that is, has actually won some ground from the Eurozone, or whether that's all BS. I don't know. I guess Parliament will determine that in the coming hours. I have no idea what will happen now. I had a fair idea that they were going to vote no, but if this news has got any substance, then perhaps we'll see something a little bit different to that. Who knows? But one thing I think we will see is a market that's prepared to wriggle around a little bit. So volatility potentially will be high. And if you're on the wrong side of that volatility, it could be very, very dangerous for you. That said, we may see absolutely nothing. Well, I'm sure we'll see something, but we may see a very small amount of movement. It's unlikely, but you've got to expect the worst, I suppose, in terms of volatility factor. And everyone's got their own risk profiles. There's no question about that. And mine is very clear. I'm a conservative trader, so I'm out of all positions right now. Nothing in the market whatsoever, including the euro pound trade that I've been in for 3 weeks. Very sad to actually take that off the table, but best to bank, I think, at this point, and maybe look to do something later on. But rather than go for a ride in the wrong direction a fair distance, or potentially a fair distance, I've chosen to close all trades at this point. And of course, if you're trading ATW accounts, then you would need to have done that already. You need to have closed your positions on all euro and all pound and all FTSE pairs at this time. So if you're still in those, and well, especially at risk, but if you are still in those trades, you need to close them. Otherwise, your account will be suspended, and I don't know what he'll do, what the boss will do next, whether he'll bring it back in after a certain period of time or otherwise. Anyway, let's get down to it, shall we? And of course, there's not only the Brexit vote that's happening today, there's also GDP figures coming out on the pound. What a day it could be for this little sterling thing. The US dollar has CPI figures coming out, and we won't really mention Mr. Brainard speaking, because I don't think there's too much that he can say that's going to move the pound pairs too much, at the very least. Maybe there's something happening on the other pairs connected to the US dollar. But the big news, of course, is I'm not sure what time Ash will tell us in a sec, hopefully, if he knows. But, mate, there's some chance that she's got a sweeter deal to take to the vote today than was this time yesterday.
Yes, there is. You're absolutely right. She's managed to get some changes to the backstop, which I think the long and the short of it, from what I understood last night, it was pretty late when I was up trying to kind of stay on top of it. But what I understood of it last night, it would mean that the backstop wouldn't be changed as a particular period. But if negotiations broke down, then the backstop would not be something that the UK would have to then follow through with. So it's not it's not down to a time period, which it was before. It's more down to if talks break down, then they can completely wipe away with the backstop. They can completely do away with the backstop.
Okay, so that's likely to happen, isn't it?
I mean, the more I was kind of hearing about it, the more I was kind of still in the camp that was still convinced she just didn't have the numbers. It would be astonishing if she did it. I mean, to go from the worst vote in parliamentary history to getting it through in the matter of a month or so, with semantics, really, that's all it is. Just a couple of semantics changed, then it would be incredibly irregular. However, as we move closer and closer to the final deal and the final date that that is coming up, maybe people are starting to panic a little bit. I heard some members of the ERG. Now, I haven't read what Jacob Rees-Mogg, after reading the text, is saying, because when I was hearing about the text yesterday, it had literally not. It hadn't even been put into the parliamentary voting office, so the MPs hadn't even read it when they were coming on to talk about it on this program that I was listening to. But there was a few that had got a hint of what maybe it said, and they some of the ERG, which are the hardline Brexiteers, they'd shifted their position somewhat. Jacob Rees-Mogg, which is the ERG member who challenged, he's the leader of the ERG who challenged Theresa May last year for a leadership. He hadn't committed one way or the other, and I think if he goes, then the chance it gets through increase significantly. But if he doesn't, then I still think that she's going to struggle. I mean, she's got a lot to overturn. She's got all of Labour. We know all the SNP, the Scottish National Party. We know they all vote against it because they don't want Brexit at all. The Liberal Democrats will vote against it. The Independents will vote against it. So there's a chunk that will definitely vote against it already. Some of those Tories will vote for it. But I'm going to have to read up and see who she's got. So it says, after talks with Juncker, the Prime Minister said she passionately believed her Brexit deal addressed the concerns by the MPs. Some fear the backstop would keep the UK in the customs agreement with the EU indefinitely. And she said MPs were clear that legal changes were needed to the backstop. Today we have secured legal changes. Now is the time to come together, back this improved Brexit deal and deliver in the instructions of the British people. So it doesn't really tell us a whole lot there.
It's a lot less certain, though, than it was this time yesterday. I mean, we weren't even entertaining the prospect that they would vote for it. Now,
absolutely right.
I still don't think we're in that camp, but well, I don't think I'm in that camp. But
no, I'm not.
You just never know.
No, you never know, because Theresa May, she continues to pull the rabbit out of the hat, doesn't she? And if anybody's going to get it through, it will be her. But I don't know. It's a lot more in the balance. It's definitely a lot more in the balance. But it would just be such a huge turnaround. Huge turnaround.
And the market would go absolutely apeshit if she got it across the line, I would imagine.
Yes. Yes, I think the pound. I mean, we saw what happened with the pound yesterday. Just on whispers that she was going back and what happened yesterday was the reports were that she had a deal ready to sign. It's just the last little bits, and there was something ready to sign. So even the suggestion that the deal had gone through sent the pound soaring. I haven't seen the pound yet today because my screens have gone haywire, and I don't know why, but I haven't seen the pound as yet today.
Well, this morning it took off as soon as the open.
Yeah,
it took off. Tempered somewhat, but looks.
Yeah, I see that.
Frame of mind.
Amazing, really. I was in a FTSE 100 trade yesterday, to the downside, and the market did start to tank. And I was looking at the pound, and I was thinking, great, you know, this is really this is going to help me out here with a weak pound. This market's going to go, but it managed to kind of carve out a bit of a hold, which the pound didn't seem to do at any point. It didn't seem to hold any any particular area. It just kept going and going and going. So the FTSE still looks like a sell to me, but I can't really get into it. I suspect if the pound strengthens, the FTSE will probably weaken.
Would you like to be in a position before the vote, or would you prefer to be watching?
Well, I think now this is what I had yesterday. I mean, I think given well, given my particular stance on it, this is where I was yesterday.
Can't see your screen.
We got it. You got it now.
Yep.
Cool. So this is where I was yesterday. I was in at 49. I got a pretty good price. Not an amazing price, but a pretty good price. I got 49. Where's that? Just here. I was in at this point here. And the market started to come down. I saw it take out this daily pivot, and I was cheering it on, thinking, great, all's good. But then it just started to carve out a hold. So I ended up coming out in this area, and now it's just popped up again. And I've got to be honest. Yes, I could have stayed in. I probably could have put stops at break even, but I've got to be honest because of my political, my particular stance on this on. The fact that I think it probably won't go through, but I can't say with a true degree of certainty. I think I would prefer to be on the sidelines. I mean, I could get in here and be net profit up if you like, because of the I got in lower than it is now. The price is now, so actually it would turn into a pretty decent trade if I took both of them and it kept coming down. I suspect it probably will, but I think because it carved out a level of support already, with the pound still on the move, and I think this area is a little bit confused now. Yes, we have a daily pivot. Yes, we have a weekly pivot. Maybe this could be a higher low here. So on the hourly chart, so I think the charts are starting to look a little bit out of sync, and for that reason, given the strong uptrend that we've had up to this particular point in the market, you know, we've managed to carve out this something of a head and shoulders pattern, but really every time the FTSE 100 tries to move to the downside, like it did here, it pops back up again. Yesterday it tried again and it popped back up again. So I'm not that comfortable trading this. So I'm going to sit on the sidelines until Brexit clears out of the way. Maybe it's today, maybe it's tomorrow, maybe it's not until Friday.
Yeah, look, I'm the same. The euro pound trade, sadly, I've waved goodbye and closed it in, but just got 5-1 out of it, which is pretty cool.
Nice.
I think
nice.
There's a chance that could well have been better. But and I totally understand the reason. This is an ATW account that I've got this trade on. So
yeah,
we've had to close all our ATW trades relevant to the euro and the pound and the FTSE guys.
Yeah.
Again, if you're in the trading an ATW account, you need to do that also.
Yeah, and the other thing with this is this is almost starting to turn into a wider left head and right shoulder as well with the FTSE. So I am starting to want to go long really, and I think that the move to the downside is short term. When it comes down, I'm having real problems with my screen and mouse here, and can't grab a here we go. Yeah, just on that with the euro pound. You're absolutely right. This could keep going, but when it comes down to it, you've got to have some point where you say we're at support, and what I've got is good, is good enough. Because the problem is, in my opinion, if you don't do that, you'll think the same thing with the next trade, and that'll bounce. and the next trade, and that'll bounce. So I think over the course of the story, taking profit at levels of support and resistance when it's proven to be an area which is held, because it did, didn't it? It did for a period. I know it's ended up coming through again, but this area did prove to be a hold in the end. So I think taking profit when this kind of thing happens is the right thing to do in the long term over a course of 10 trades.
Of what was available.
Yeah.
So I got on today as well. I didn't take it off till the deadline, which was 1 o'clock Singapore. So,
Okay.
Yeah, we got a little bit more today out of it. But my target for next concern or consideration was 84.15. So around about 100 pips shy of where I really wanted to get out. But you know, if you start complaining about winning money, and you're going to be a grumpy old bugger.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely, and you've made money on a really good trade there as well. So I think that was a great trade, mate. And I think yes, this could go, but by the same token, maybe this gets voted out and it doesn't, because I think the markets are basically suggesting that she's going to get a deal through. That's what the pound is suggesting at this stage.
Anyway, do we know a time yet?
Let me have a look. Labour leader is urging his to vote against. No, I don't have a time here. I will find one. Hold on. What's this? The UK. Oh no, that's 29th.
If it happens, we'll certainly see it in the charts. But
we certainly will. Yeah, yeah. I'll have a look, mate. I'll see if I can find it.
All right, happy days. I don't know that there's too much to get interested in today for me, to be fair, but I'll have a quick squiz around the charts and see what's there. I'll probably be prepared to trade something that's got absolutely nothing to do with pound or euro, but there will, depending on what happens, there's the chance.
Tuesday evening, it says here.
Okay, so a long way from now.
Yeah, whole day.
So maybe there's just a chance to trade something here. Dollar yen is interesting. We spoke about this area last week, and we're looking for a sell at these highs. We've now broken through the weekly pivots, and we've now come back to it. So a reversal bar here. If I look at this chart tomorrow on the daily, sorry, wrong way, and see that as a high test bar, perhaps, may be interested in trading it. It doesn't want to be too much bigger than it is right now, I've got to say, because it won't give us any room for profit before the low here, which is a definite prerequisite of going into the trade. So daily tomorrow could look good. We might get a chance, however, even as early as not the next candle, or not the close of this candle, which is a bit over an hour away, because I don't like it. Yeah, I don't see any way to get in there right now, actually. Interesting. Wave rider guys might be over that, although their super trend won't be in the right area, I wouldn't have thought. I don't really know. Yeah, I can't really see a way into this right now. That's a bit sad. I'd like to be trading short off the weekly pivot, but at this point, so what the candle's like in an hour or so, but right now I don't like it too much. The Aussie pairs. How did that Aussie CAD finish up that we traded in the show yesterday? I got out, guys. It's still just around about target area, really. We traded long, and where did we trade this? This bar or this bar? This bar, I think. Okay. So that hit target. I got out before target, and really it hasn't done anything too much So yeah, at least it was a winner, I suppose. Nothing to get excited about really at the end of the day. Today, looks strong actually. We've had a pullback, but it's not a good pullback. Yeah, maybe another one. I don't know. I don't want to get back into this. It's very messy, and it is at resistance. Hasn't really gone through it, so I think I'll leave that alone. The Aussie itself, yeah. Yesterday we were talking about, and Aussie yen. I'll get to in a minute. If you got in Ash, you would have done okay. The Aussie on the daily chart still looking for a pullback, so still got the bullish engulfing bar, still looking for a higher low. So until that happens, I'll stay out of this one as well. Can it happen today? Sure, it can. We've got a nice little opportunity here for this to pull back. One would have thought, maybe even reverse this current momentum, but in the first instance, I'll be looking for this to come down to either the daily or the weekly pivot. So nothing's changed. It's exactly the same as it was yesterday. And if I get that down here and a higher low, then I can look to trade it long. Aussie yen, the one that we spoke about yesterday, Ash was keen on getting long this, and I was keen on getting long it, but only after we got a retracement. Had you been nice and vigilant, you could have traded that bar there. Again, not for me. Had I seen that down here, different story. But this is not the correct formula for me to trade long. It's close, but it's not there. I needed some pullback here. Did you trade it, Ash, or no?
No, I didn't, mate. No, I'm with you actually on it. I think there is probably a better price. I don't particularly like it when you get markets just tearing and taking off without any opportunity of a pullback to get in. So no, I didn't trade that. But I think the opportunity is still there. I don't think it's been lost. I'd like to see it somewhere around about the 78.30, I think, before I was looking into that one.
Yeah, down here somewhere. That's the go. So with any luck, you can't see it happening on the 4-hour charts, but and that leads me, I suppose, into the next little equation, which is, okay, we've got a reversal bar on the monthly pivot. We've got a second rejection of that. Well, so far it's a rejection. It may not be. Smaller time frames might get me a little bit interested in that. Can I find a confluence? It's a fair way away, but it's there, I suppose. It's not going to happen anytime soon. When I say it, I mean the confluence, and the setup won't happen anytime soon. So maybe a low test bar here might get me interested in it. We'll see how that works out. Maybe this just goes to the stratosphere and doesn't even give us an opportunity. But that's what I'll be looking for. So something in this area, around the confluence area, gets me interested. But at this point, Nyetsky. The only other one is Aussie Kiwi, and that's done absolutely jack since yesterday. It's exactly the same scenario as it was at this time yesterday. So to trade that for me is just not on the cards. I really can't see anything there that interests me at all on the bigger time frames, and I got to say the same on the smaller time frames. It's a tough one. There's really nothing to get excited about there, I don't think. Certainly from the way I trade point of view. So dollar yen, I am interested in trading dollar yen, but it doesn't seem to want to give me anything exciting. Maybe there's something up here. It's got a bit of work to do, though, hasn't it? Whole lot of work to do. Frustrating, really. And the other side, same. It's right in the middle of nowhere for me, and very, very tough to be looking at an entry of any kind. So, mate, I don't know what we do for the rest of the session. Have you got any stocks you want to look at? Have you got
Well, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, do you know what? There is something I just
Oh, that Talga thing crashed yesterday.
I was just listening into some of the reports from the European Union. Yeah, just very, very quickly. I've got a problem with this screens. I wonder if I should try and sort them out. Let me just let me quickly bring up what we were talking about yesterday. I was right on my on what I'd heard about Nvidia because they did actually do some acquisition yesterday, and Nvidia shares went gangbusters. They were the outperformer on the US markets yesterday. See if I can get the screen up. Let's try again. And I still like them, but I'll tell you what kept me out of it. I was ready to pull the trigger on this. Let's have a look at it. Let's see if I can bring my other system up. Yeah, do you know what's? I woke up this morning and I've found that my screen. I've got 4 screens and it's switched, showing me. It's taken one screen away and brought a new screen up. I don't know how.
What did
Nvidia? But I don't know, but it's kind of put me out of sync a little bit here. Okay, so this is I want this, and I want this, and I want this. Right, so this was Nvidia yesterday, and we saw yesterday it just took off straight away. There were opportunities to get into this. When we look at the chart, and we look at some of the other levels. Now, where's my? Oh, here we go. I want an hourly. Oops. Right, here we go. Here's the hourly chart here yesterday. So this is yesterday's range. It gapped straight up into an area of resistance, but really the 154 would have been a really good time to buy this, and then it shot to the upside. So there was an opportunity yesterday, but the thing that's kept me out of this, and this is the difficult thing when you're kind of looking at a company that is an overseas company. So obviously this is a United States company. So far the price is $161. So when we go to the financials, we see that the financials are calculated here. Let me just make sure that my screen is actually properly activated. Yeah, we see that the financials are showing here in $161. But you know what the problem is, and this is when you're kind of looking to buy something overseas, is that if this, which is the pound, continues to strengthen, Nvidia is going to be cheaper to buy, even if it starts to, continues to take off. It's going to be cheaper to buy after this meaningful vote than it is before it. So in a lot of ways, the timing couldn't have been worse, for that Nvidia news. I could have done with it really after the 29th of March, because we'll know vaguely where the pound is likely to settle. After the 29th of March, certainly by the midpoint of the year, I suspect we'll have a fairly decent idea on the price of the pound, and it's not really until then that you. Well, yes, yeah. I mean, there will be a few twists and turns, but ultimately it'll be dotting the I's and crossing the T's. But after the 29th of March, as long as there's some sort of deal in place, so we'll know what the value of the pound is at that point. We'll know how investors feel about it. I think people are obviously keen to buy the pound. They're obviously trying to go long the pound because they think ultimately there will be something in the offing. It may not be the value that it was prior to Brexit, but it will I suspect it will get maybe at least halfway home, so maybe at 140. But the point is that with a stronger pound, US stocks become that little bit cheaper. So I couldn't even buy Nvidia off a decent bit of data because of all this this Brexit uncertainty. So actually, it's even affected some decisions on the you know, from a retail trading perspective. So not really a lot I could do there.
So what's next, mate? Just wait.
Yeah, that's all that's the problem. I mean, you know, it's a little bit of limbo. I was going to say to you, if we don't get a decent outcome really today, then I was going to suggest we actually should take tomorrow off because
Yeah.
what's that?
That's a plan, because if there isn't a decent outcome, it's a waste of time.
Yeah, it really is. It really is. It does become just a waste of time sitting in front of the charts. You know, it's one thing kind of looking at it for a day and saying, okay, let's at least see what the market sentiment is. But realistically, any movement that happens in the market today is still a little bit of guesswork. There's certainly some positioning going on, and I am seeing the FTSE 100 open so far fairly aggressively to the downside. We look at this on a 5-minute chart here. We're seeing some pretty aggressive moves so far, but will this keep going? I don't know. Maybe it will. Maybe with a pound opening to the upside as it did, maybe the FTSE 100 does keep going. I'm still looking for buying opportunities, and I think that in many respects, I guess Brexit, you know, if this can continue to move down, it's probably going to create a decent opportunity to pick up something at a half decent price. You know, I could have stayed in this last night, but as I say, it carved itself out a level of support, and I think that ultimately you have to kind of look at these things and think, you know, is it worth staying in? You know, as you had the same quandary with the euro and the pound. And I guess when you do kind of the overall statistical evidence on this stuff, then it usually isn't better to stay in this, but usually better to find that level of support. But there are times where the statistics change, and it's when there's a big announcement, because it's news that makes moves. And I guess that today we might actually have a significant move in the FTSE to the downside, but hopefully that's going to create some upside. So really, I'm waiting for the dust to settle, waiting for the cobwebs to clear, and then some decisions can be made. And it's the same when, as I say, when I look at you know, things like Nvidia. I still really like this, and as long as this doesn't take off, I would still like to get into it. So what I'd want to see on Nvidia by the end of today really is some sort of pullback. You know, if it pulls back into this area, then I will be quite happy to trade this to the upside, as long as the pound has also moved into a fairly healthy spot. But that's probably going to be a lot shorter. It's going to take a lot shorter time to have this particular setup than it is to have a setup on the pound. So I have to kind of leave things on hold, unfortunately, mate. You know, Boeing as well. We were talking about Boeing yesterday.
Yeah, did they?
And
well, they wouldn't have released it yet.
What's that?
Well, they've got the black box, but they wouldn't have released the findings yet.
That's right, but you know what's I mean, obviously, I think about a potential buying opportunity with Boeing, and you'd certainly want to make sure that you wait. I mean, this is Boeing on the end. Let me just check.
How has it traded since the crash?
I will show you. Let's see if I can find it on. Much more likely. Here we go. No, that's no good. Let's have a look on this. This is what happened yesterday with Boeing. So we had a huge gap to the downside, but then that was just gobbled straight up again. So it did manage to kind of get to another point of what now will be likely to be resistance. But I think that there's probably a little bit more unfolding that needs to happen with this particular story. I did just read that Singapore banned the 737 from their airspace for a period. So we'll see whether that does actually affect Boeing stock more significantly or not. I'm not sure what's going to happen, but this may need to calm down a little bit. The actual overall numbers from Boeing are pretty good, but if they get a plane which is recalled, what I heard yesterday was that it was, to a degree, it was pilot error. It's the fact that apparently the plane does something to correct its nose when it starts to take off, and the pilots weren't trained in this, so they overcompensated. Now, whether that's true or not, I don't know. So if it's a training issue, then I think that that the story will probably be swept aside fairly quickly. But if it does become something more significant, then obviously we'll see Boeing stocks probably still move to the downside a little bit more significantly before we get some sort of bottom. So there's probably another opportunity. There's probably opportunities still with Boeing. As I say, it did gap down quite dramatically, but it managed to grab back quite a lot of the move to the downside in the end.
Wow, a training issue. How bad would that be?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, apparently the from what I heard, the pilots weren't aware of this particular adaptation that the plane makes.
Yep.
So if it is that, you're absolutely right. It's just that the pilots not being aware of something would be pretty criminal. But we'll see whether that ends up being the story or not.
We shall indeed. Days like this where you're not going to trade, I tend to go and have a look at the very big picture, and I'm kind of interested in what's going to happen post-Brexit. And if I have a look at the pound in particular.
Yeah, I like that. I like that thought. That, yeah, the big picture does become a lot more prevalent, doesn't it?
Yeah, what's that going to look like?
Look at the FTSE.
Is it absolutely possible that we go back to pre-Brexit levels? Is that possible?
Well, that's a good question. That's a really good question. So if we bring the pound up here, then pre-Brexit levels, 2016. So let's make sure I've got enough chart here.
About 150, wasn't it?
140 is that one. What's this here? Oh, here we go. Yeah, near enough. Near enough. The 150 marks around about here. So yeah, it was. The announcement was made 2015. That's 2016, and this is the vote. That's the eventual vote, and that particular high is around about the 150 mark. So the question is, could it get back up there? And yes, it could. I suppose when it comes down to it, does the deal that Theresa, that'll be the next thing, won't it? It'll be then sifting through the numbers of her deal. Does the deal that she's brought back suggest that the UK economy is going to be still healthy enough to attract investment and therefore continue the economy to grow, and therefore allowing Mark Carney to do things like raise interest rates. So there's still a lot of questions, I suspect, after this particular deal's done. If they start to ascertain that the UK economy hasn't really changed too much since the Brexit vote, then we probably will find ourselves back to 150. But certainly back to this area here around about 140, which that would be my personal kind of I guess prediction, is that we probably find ourselves halfway home, between the 130 and 150. I think we find ourselves halfway home in pretty quick fashion. What's still possible is that it gets voted down, and then the Canada Plus or Norway option, which I've been talking about for a long time, as my prediction of where we absolutely end up, will come a little bit more into the sites. So there's still kind of permutations that Theresa May's deal could actually get voted down, and it could still be positive ultimately, the pound. But I think it's really interesting what's going on right now, because what we've basically got is a whole bunch of emotion kicking into the market. You know, the pound has had an extraordinary day yesterday, and it's continuing its move to the upside. The FTSE 100 didn't have a hugely extraordinary day yesterday, but it's ended up having a fairly
just go
that was
sorry go
that last one. This was the pound. This is the daily.
Yeah, look at that big double bottom. No,
yeah, here, yeah,
big double bottom, big higher low, potential next big higher low, and higher highs.
Yeah.
Technically that's on a run. That's on a rampage.
Yeah, and this is the interesting thing, isn't it? It kind of hit an area of support, and then it had a driver. And the driver, you know, I don't think anybody could have predicted that it would create an outside bar like it has done. But the outside bar is an incredibly bullish signal. And then we have this price action so far today. And really, as I say, this is still on guesswork. You know, it's a little bit like what we saw with the stock market, to do with whether they were going to get the Chinese trade deal through. So this is on guesswork. So if this does get up to here, and my first thought is, when we eventually get up to this point by 8:30, which could easily happen, another 100 pips by the end of the day could easily happen. The vote gets taken out, and then all of a sudden we start to tank back down to the downside. That would be my play. I wouldn't be interested in the pound for upside now. I'd be interested to see whether there's an opportunity for downside, because if we think about this turning on its head, if this is an opportunity to the upside, it makes complete sense that this is an opportunity to the downside, because this is about emotion and guesswork. So coming up to this point, it's probably going to be it's going to be more about facts. So are we going to get a buy the rumor, sell the news kind of scenario? And right now, the way that the news is being reported, I think there's every chance that this could be the high for the pound, and then we start to move to the downside until the next leg, when we actually do get something of a more concrete and better deal on the table.
Yeah, look, unfortunately, I don't think we have the luxury of speculating on that. Well, I don't, because I'm conservative. If I was a little less risk averse, I suppose, I don't know if I'd be looking at technicals anyway. I'd just be taking a position and backing my judgment. And, and I was already in the position. That's what makes me sad. I was already in the position. I had to close. So
same, mate. Same. As I say, I was also in a position with the FTSE yesterday, and you look what's happening to it today. You know, I was in all the way up here, and I chose to come out of it. But then there's probably lessons to be learned here. But I chose to come out of it. But this is already created a 50 pip move, and what I got was a 30 pip move. So I've missed out on what is already 20 pips. And if I show you this, the suggestion from this is that we're probably coming all the way down to this point here. So I think that there's still another 20 pips in this. So I've probably missed out on 40 pips, from what was a 20 pip move. Could have probably turned into more like a 70 pip move. It may get held up here, but yeah, same.
Both you and I have been around long enough to know that this doesn't always happen this way.
Well, this is the thing. This could have gone either way, and the charts were really expressing that, with the FTSE. Not so much with the pound, but this could have gone either way. We could have woken up this morning, and it could be all the way up here. What was concerning me was I going to get a spread that was going to take my trade out anyway, and then have to kind of sit through it, but when you wake up and it kind of goes in your direction, then you feel like you've made the wrong decision. But that's not always accurate. What's accurate is what happens over the course of 10 of these.
More than once.
And Yeah, and I can say that you know, more often than not, the market will bounce in an area of support and come back, and then kind of you're caught in a bit of an area that you don't want to be in. So so yeah, so I don't think so. I mean, you know, realistically, I could have got back in this morning, but because of what we were talking about yesterday about maybe not trading the FTSE or the pound until this all cleared up, then that's really the back of my mind. I think it's probably the best thing to do. And the truth is that there's plenty of other opportunities which are going to be much easier to trade.
Mate, so many cliches covering that. Better out looking in than in looking out.
Yeah, well, this is the thing. This is the thing. You know, it's my only my only regret is that if this doesn't clear up by the end of the week, I'm flying to Singapore next week, which is going to take me out for another week. So I've really got pretty much 2 weeks where I can't do anything, because I like to be settled when I'm trading. I like to be just settled down in a place and not have to make too many choices. So and not have too many other focuses going on. So my only thing is that I probably won't have another opportunity now this month to trade. So I might have to just say the profit I've got is the profit of the month, and it's not really anywhere near my target of what profit I like to hit. So that's the only thing really, is the and if, let me just think, if this had gone through, then that would have been yeah, it still wouldn't have quite given me the profit that I'd need for the month anyway. But yeah, it's getting in the way this week for me. This is the 1 week that it's genuinely got in the way.
Bloody got in the way for 2 years, the bastard.
Yeah, I know. I know. It's been tough, isn't it, for that?
And oh, look, I can't wait till where are we? April. And you know, hopefully March 29 is the end, and we can actually come back to a world that doesn't include those what are they, 6 letters, Brexit, Brexit.
Yeah,
Can still spell at sometimes anyway. Yeah, so that's where we're at really. There's not a whole lot. One thing we don't talk about, which is kind of surprising, is the euro. We talk about the pound a lot.
Yep.
Through Brexit, but we haven't spoken a whole lot about the euro. And the euro is a predictable beast in many ways. It'll run and then it'll consolidate for 100 years before it goes again, unlike a lot of crosses. So once it starts to get into a range, it's a really cool thing to trade, in my opinion. We've broken out of that range in the last week or so, but now we've come straight back into there. Well, we're not completely in there on a weekly basis, but this is exactly my territory to trade. And again, unfortunately, I'm unable to do so because of the uncertainty surrounding this 6-letter word. But if Brexit settles down, and of course this is the thing, I don't think we're going to be anywhere near here this time on Friday. Or if we are, we would have been up here and we would have been down here probably. So that's the issue. It's very, very difficult to not only find a way in, but to stay in once you're in. Where do you put your stops? That's the big problem. But if I'm absolutely honest on the euro with myself right now, depends a lot on this monthly candle, and that obviously the 29th, by the end of the month, we'll know. But the reason I say that is because this line here, which is 113.60, is an all-time, since 2014, when I say all-time, level that the market respects, as you can see through here. It can't get above it, can't get below it, and now we are below it, and we're substantially below it. And this is, to me, the very, very big line in the sand. If we can come back to there, then we may be euro bullish. But at the moment, it's very, very tough to be a euro bull, to be fair. I don't think, like you, I don't think I'll get the opportunity to trade this back into the range and back to that level, because I don't think we'll be here on Friday. We'll be somewhere else where that is entirely a guess, to be absolutely frank. I wish I could say with any certainty at all that we're going to be long or short, but I can't. There's absolutely no way I can predict where the euro is going to go.
Yeah, well, it had some bullish price action, didn't it? Obviously, off the back of the hope that Brexit will eventually kind of happen today. I think if the parliamentary vote goes through, then we probably will start to see that euro strengthen off the back of that as well.
Maybe, and again, that's why I'm not sure that is going to be the case. I just don't have a fixed, firm belief that the logical is going to be the actual. If you understand what I mean. Because, the market's a funny beast. Logic and the market sometimes have two different directions, and time again. Let's go back to I meant to mention this yesterday, actually. Last Thursday, where we were talking about cable and what charts were on? Daily chart, maybe? Yeah, daily chart. And remember these two bars here. I was talking about these two bars here and said there is no possible way I can't trade that. Yet, it's too obvious. It's way too obvious that this is going to go long. I mean, it has now broken through there, but you would have had to undergo a lot of pain to actually get into profit here, and you're only just in profit if that were to be the case. So that was actually a false signal. Now, if you see that on your chart 99 times out of, well, no, that's not true either, but a big percentage of the time, this is going to go long. Off the monthly pivot, double bottom, tweezer bottom, it's going to go long. But it was just too obvious, really. And I said at the time, when you see this happen, and the whole planet, the whole traders see this happen, you've got to expect it's going to go. And therefore you have to trade it. But I smell a rat. And I smelled a rat, and I was right. It went the other way. Fortunately, I was wise enough to put my entry up here above the weekly pivot. And that's what saved me from getting smashed, as a lot of others did, I know. Because why wouldn't you trade that?
Yeah, absolutely. And a lot of people would have seen that and just got in, wouldn't they? They would have been quite happy just to get into that.
Yep, absolutely. And that's exactly what I'm saying. Oftentimes, you'll find that it's just too obvious. And if logically we're expecting the euro to rally on a result of a vote, and it may well happen, of course, but sometimes it's just too logical. And that's what I'm saying. I'm not sure that this is going to be the case.
Yeah.
In about, 8 hours or something?
Actually, 12 hours from now. So it's between 8:30 and 9 UK time, and it's 8:30 AM now. So yeah, around about 12 hours, we'll have a little bit of a clearer picture on this. Interesting, the FTSE's in an area that is actually kind of tradable, but it's not quite there yet. I mean, my area now that I'd really like to see this FTSE in before I look for the upside would be down on this this trend line. That would be my first attempt, I think, if it came down here, which starts to look like a neckline, but this right shoulder's too long now, so that the pattern's changed somewhat. So down in this area, I think that there's going to be a lot of interested parties. I'm going to have a look at this trend line as well, because if this trend line gives us any kind of confluence, which it doesn't until the 21st of March, coming all the way down here would be a no-brainer for me. So if it continues to drop a significant amount, then which it may, you know, we might this might be emotion and people making decisions that there's a deal being done. The deal gets done and it continues. So it is possible that we do find ourselves around here. So I'll be looking for signs and signals of a turnaround down here, I think, and then look to trade this back to the upside. Always possible that that the market has other forces at play after that, and it continues even from that point to come down. But I'm interested in a FTSE long, and you know, there's a little intraday long area here, but as yet that has not held up. You know, this certainly doesn't look like it's got enough support just yet. So I guess it's going to be this point would probably be the first point of call. This point would be second. So let me just see how far that's away. That's for, but that's close enough to trade. So I may well pick it up here. Definitely, if that is to happen before the vote, I'll be looking to trade that at that point, and then again down at that point. So there might still be an opportunity actually. This does help me out, I think, this month as this does continue to crash to the downside. I'm considering also the S&P and what happens across the shores. And yesterday we had a really good move yesterday with the S&P. So the S&P took a fairly significant dip, and then it's just managed to fly right back to the upside again. So the S&P is holding on to gains, even though it may well be that the S&P has possibly just taken out a level. So maybe actually the S&P looks a little bit dodgy. So actually the FTSE's not too attractive a proposition right now.
Can the FTSE drag the S&P with it?
Yes, it can. Yes, it can. You know, the FTSE oftentimes is the leader. Not always, but oftentimes it is the leader in some of these moves. So so the FTSE absolutely could be a trigger. Whether it's about the pound strengthening is another question. You know, it might just be that investors look at the FTSE 100, see that there's a little glitch in world markets confidence, and then start to get out of some of the other world markets as well, with the anticipation that that some of the news may well continue to turn a little bit rotten. So so yes, absolutely could drag everything else down.
And I suppose while we're on that subject, what else really can we look at as Brexit unfolds and we actually get a result? Does the market go into a risk on mentality because we now know results?
Well, the FTSE probably won't if the pound continues to strengthen, because obviously, you know, profits will be diminished as they trade so much abroad, and so much you know, so many companies are exposed specifically to the American market. So as the pound strengthens, then FTSE 100 companies will be an area that people will not want to be involved in so much. So that will not create a buying opportunity until the pound settles down. So we get some sort of fair value area. But you know, when fair value comes into play, then yes.
Yeah, I was thinking more your safe haven currencies like the yen, like the Swissy, like maybe.
Oh yeah.
You know, what sort of an attitude should we have if, for instance, we go Brexit no deal? Oh, that's off the table now, isn't it? Oh, it's not yet off the table, is it?
No, it's not quite off the table. No. Well, certainly, you know, I mean, the pound obviously would be the trade still, and this is the interesting thing is, you know, you get a deal on the pound's the trade, you don't get a deal, the pound's the trade. But if the pound, I suppose it more comes down to the fact that this is the China 50, so we've got the Hang Seng, we've got which is looking like it's created a lower high. We've got the FTSE, which we've already seen tanking to the downside. We've got the S&P, which looks like it's broken an area and is suggesting that we may well have a lower high on this one as well. It's taken out a trend line, and it's looking like it's creating a lower high. We have the Dow, same. That's also created something that which looks like a lower high. So it certainly seems to me that world markets are losing their steam in this particular area. So because of that, you have to consider the yen, don't you? I mean, this is the dollar yen on the daily, and you have to start looking at the yen because risk off looks like it may well be just about to have a bit of a renaissance, and for that very reason, we'd be waiting for signs and signals that the yen would be the trade to take. I don't see too much here that looks that clean or attractive, but the yen takes out this trend line, dollar yen takes out this trend line, then I think we would be looking for some yen downside as people probably hedge their bets and start to rush to the safe havens. I think gold may well be a better option, but let's have a quick look at gold as well. Where is it?
Yeah, it's come off a low now, hasn't it? It's poised to go.
Poised to go. So yeah, so it looks to me that yeah, this is a bit of a difficult chart with gold. It looks to me like it may also be creating a bit of a lower high. So maybe gold wouldn't be the place to go. I mean, at this particular stage, the yen hasn't shaped up to give us a trade. World markets look like they are certainly attempting to carve out those lower highs, but there's probably no true confirmation just yet. But they look like they may well be starting a leg fairly soon. And gold doesn't look at this stage that it's an attractive buying opportunity. I guess when we bring this down to a 4-hour chart, we probably see a clearer picture here, and it would probably have to get through that level. And if it does, then maybe all bets are off. Probably wanted to get through here as well. So gold at 1320 looks attractive. The yen would have to take out the that trend line, in my opinion, to look attractive. So there's a bit of work to do. I think there's still a little bit before this tanker turns. So I think there's plenty of time here, mate.
Yeah, I'm a little bit keen on dollar yen at the moment, primarily because of the area it's just come from and the signals it gave at that point, which are this double top sitting here. So I think a lower high here does get me interested straight away. I'm looking for that right now. Where would I like to trade it from? Well, here would be great. Even a high test bar now wouldn't be too dusty either. But I prefer it to get to here, give me a decent retracement on this move, and then go.
What's that one? Is that dollar yen?
Monthly. Yeah, that's dollar yen.
Oh, okay. Hold on, that looks different. Is that the daily?
Yeah.
Oh, why does that look different? Hold on. Dollar yen. Let me have a look at your chart again.
Looks the same to me.
Hold on. Yeah, actually, I think I missed one. Looking at this, I think you're right. Looks like today we get some sort of reversal bar, and this could be on. I mean, we haven't broken through with any true confidence, but if today ends up being a reversal bar, dollar yen actually starts to look a lot more attractive.
It does. That's what I'm waiting for. Yeah. So hopefully, if we do get a result today, or at least a clear direction out of London town, and the market is a little bit more stable, tomorrow morning I may look to trade that. We shall see.
Yeah, I like that. FTSE is just starting to carve out the first intraday area for the buyers.
Pound's doing jack.
Yeah, and I think with the pound doing jack, I think this FTSE actually is probably much more likely to hold this area. If this 15-minute bar closes above this point, then the FTSE is probably likely to move back to the upside. Now, whether that creates a selling opportunity is another question, and I think it's going to be a bit of a headache, in my opinion. So that would actually see that area there would still be worth me getting into, because that'd be exactly where I got out, pretty much just a bit lower. I got out here. So there's there may well be an opportunity to trade this short again, but with this kind of movement, I'm not really that keen. Not really that keen. I think missing the first dip is probably enough to confuse the mind sufficiently to just let this market just settle down and pass and come back when things have settled. And I think this is really important, and this is a really important test, I think, for myself and anybody else, is that if you miss a trade, there are always going to be other opportunities, but sometimes you just have to say it just didn't feel right. And if it doesn't feel right, there's something actually within you that is not necessarily thinking on a practical level that that may well drive you into a bad decision. Because if you're trading off intuition alone, then you are much more likely to make the wrong decision. And I think that when it comes down to kind of missing trades, then sometimes your technical analyst hat can kind of get a little bit skewed. I mean, there's no doubt about it. This is a buying opportunity, especially for those scalpers. They're going to be all over this to try and get this back to the upside. But does this become a selling opportunity with a bar like this? Maybe that's just a bit exhaustive. Maybe we're still waiting for a bit more clarity. Maybe all that ends up happening is that we end up pretty much back where we started for a day, for the day, and actually then the S&P and the China 50 and the Hang Seng and the Dow Jones actually starts to take precedent, and we see these markets actually settle down into something that is a little bit more in agreement.
Yeah, look, I think when you said then that 2 words, not alone, and that is nothing should be done in isolation here in trading. You have to have something else to back you up. And if that's intuition followed by a fundamental, or fundamental backed up by a technical, whatever it is, one thing here does not a future make in trading. I can
absolutely, yeah. So I'm okay sitting this one out, mate. To be honest, I think
yep, me too.
I think there's plenty of opportunities. If this market tanks the downside, then what that does is eventually give us a buying opportunity. If it holds here, then maybe it creates another selling opportunity, because looks like there's some market weakness on its way, regardless of this.
So your gut feel, well, you'll be sitting up watching it. I won't be. Oh, actually, I'll be probably up early enough to see that happen. What's your gut feel?
My gut feel is my gut feel is that she doesn't get it through. I mean, it's really interesting that the charts suggest one thing at this stage, and I'm going the other way. But that's because experience tells me that that the market moves early. It likes to kind of like get its play in early, and that's all I think is going on. I don't think that anybody knows any more than I do, because I would be surprised if there's anything else out there that that is being reported. We live in an age of information, so the information available is available to everybody. And if the information that I've managed to get tells me that this could go really either way, then but slightly on the side of not leaving, of the vote going not going through, then that would suggest to me that that people are probably overreacted at this stage. And
the result make any difference? So
I beg your pardon?
Will the size of the result make any difference? So let's say we're expecting a 55% to 45% vote that says no to her deal.
Yeah.
And we get another landslide against her. Does that say anything, or have we gone beyond that point? Because everything.
That's a really good question. I think that's a really good question. Yeah, I think that's a really good question, and the reason that I think it's a really good question is that Theresa May is really in control of this whole thing, and she may well say, "I'm going to bring it back one more time," if it's close. If it gets an absolute landslide defeat, then I think that the knives will be out for her, and again, the knives will be out for her. So it's a really good question. Can she turn around the landslide that she's got against her right now? I mean, you have to say it's fairly unlikely. Can she turn it around significantly enough to maybe bring enough confidence into her? Yeah, quite possibly. The trouble is that the European Union have bent really already to give her. Apparently, she said that there's three um, amendments to the bill, and they've already bent on that, and they've said once that that's the deal, that's it. So they've now saying again, don't come back. This really is it. This is your last chance. MPs have to decide what they want. We have given you as much leeway as we possibly will give you. The Brexiteer Jacob Rees-Mogg, the ERG member who doesn't want Theresa May's deal to go through because he doesn't think the Irish backstop gives us Brexit. He said yesterday that that if there's not enough in the information, that he will vote again. He will vote it down again and gamble that they will still get the Brexit that he wants, because he seems to think that Juncker and the rest of them will offer another chance for a deal. Now, I think that's incredibly unlikely, but that's more the question. It's not about whether she loses by what margin she loses by. If she loses by a very, very small margin, the question is, how can that margin get turned either way? Is it going to come down to her leaning on some people and saying, right, I've lent on enough people, it's going to go through next time? Or will it come down to her being able to go back and saying, just give me one more tweak, I need one more? Now, the second one is very unlikely. I don't think they're going to give her one more tweak. But could she?
Aren't the rules now firmly in place that it's yes or no today, and if it's no today, it's yes or no tomorrow. If it's yes or no tomorrow, or if it's no tomorrow, it's yes or no the next day. There doesn't seem to be any other avenue for her, does there?
Unfortunately, she does actually hold all the cards when it comes down to whether this could get voted on again, and I wouldn't. It wouldn't surprise me. Yeah.
Oh my God.
Surprise me at all for her to give it another blast.
Holy dooly! That's all I can say.
Yeah. It could come back again, mate. Unlikely, it's very unlikely that it will, but she could say, we're close to getting this over the line. We just need one more push, because she's kept going back to the European Union. She is incredibly robust and belligerent when she gets her teeth into something, and she will go back and ask the question until the answer that she wants actually does arise. Now, we've known this about Theresa May ever since she's been in government. She was the foreign secretary for many, many years. And Ken Clarke famously said when she became the PM that she's a bloody difficult woman. And that's why, because she just does not give up, no matter how blinkered the idea seems. She doesn't give up on it, and for that reason, she may well eventually get it through. I mean, this particular time round, I'd still be very, very surprised. But my personal thought on this calendar of events is going to go. She gets voted down. No deal is the question, really, but I suspect that probably will get voted down. And after that, I think we get the extension. I did read yesterday that the European Union are talking about charging the UK 1 billion, not sure if it was pounds or euros, but I think it was pounds, for every month of the extension. So this could end up costing a whole lot of money, yeah.
Well, I wonder what it's cost already, for goodness sake.
Well, it's cost a hell of a lot of money, and actually, I don't think we've really seen the effects of what it's costed just yet. I think
that's just in intangible things. What about the intangibles? Wow.
Yeah, the intangibles are businesses have left. and they are talking about even more contingency plans to leave the UK shores. So they're you know, we've already seen Nissan close a plant. We've seen Toyota choose not to make a particular car over here. So there is already an effect of this happening. There's already a knock-on effect that's started to filter through, and that's only going to continue, I would have thought, over the next 5 years if people find that they just can't do the business that they could do before, because there's so much exposure to the European Union. So you're absolutely right. This the cost of this could be astronomical, really, for this country. And I think what it's going to come down to is probably a decade or at least a parliamentary term before a leader that is probably a little bit more centrist comes into power and says we're going to have to renegotiate the European Union deal.
I don't want to know.
That's the sad truth, actually, mate. The sad truth is, at some point, I suspect we will probably be snapping right back to where we were, or on slightly worse terms, because the EU have got no reason to let us back in on the same terms. But I think we'll probably be snapping back exactly to where we were. But is it this time around, or is it the next time around? And I think it. You know, if it's the next time around, it could take 5 to 10 years before that happens, and that's 5 to 10 years of an economy which will be, I think, fairly sluggish, and find that leaving the EU was not a good idea at all. So it really comes down to who's going to take the reins. When you look across the benches, Jeremy Corbyn's no better than Theresa May when it comes down to the EU. Yes, he would want to renegotiate, but he's not very EU centric. He's not a Eurocentric politician. You know, he's always kind of gone for the. I couldn't think of the term. What's the term when you get an MP which always goes against the government? The something vote. He always goes for the. No, not rebel. That's not the word I was thinking of anyway. Always goes for the something vote. He's like an activist, and I can't think what it is, but there's a term, and that's what he is. Unfortunately, without telling you what the term is, it probably doesn't really give you the.
I'm trying. The cogs are turning, but they're not turning very fast.
Mine tried to turn last night.
It's all this Brexit stuff that is now just, fortunately, I suppose, in many ways, coming to an absolute point where one day, someday soon, we'll actually be in a trading show where we don't have to talk about Brexit, and that will be bloody good.
Yeah, whether that's one day soon, I don't know, but
well, we'll probably be talking about this has happened because of Brexit.
Yes.
At least we won't be speculating as to what might happen. We'll be talking about what has happened, and that's a bloody big difference.
Yes, absolutely, mate. Yeah, absolutely agree with that. Yeah, well, that's where we are anyway.
Yeah, I reckon we're pretty much done. Very quiet in the boondocks. Nobody's talking to us today. There's no questions about. So
well, they're probably as jaded as we are, and to be fair, if they can't put, if nobody can put any trades on, then there's probably not really a lot we can discuss, is there? I know actually yesterday, Christo was talking about Amazon. Let's just have a quick look at Amazon before we go.
Okay, you can do that. Yep.
Again, there's an issue. The thing is, what's interesting about this, we have to take this as well. In fact, we'll check the Nasdaq in a second. The two questions here. Let's put this on a different chart here. I might also be creating something of a lower high. See, the question is, I'm going to just bring up the Nasdaq a second, because obviously the Nasdaq will be both Amazon and Nvidia. Now the question is, well, this is interesting, isn't it? We've seen a potential lower high on the S&P, and yet on the Nasdaq, what we're actually seeing is another attempt to break through. I mean, yes, it's possibly this ends up being a double top, so a slightly different reversal look about it, but it's certainly attempting to create fresh highs, whereas the S&P doesn't like it looks like it may have given up the ghost. But when we look at the wider picture here, on the indice that is being traded on the monthly, it looks slightly different. Maybe this is where we start to get opportunities. Then what I would want to see is probably the Nasdaq to start with give us a buying opportunity. And then after the Nasdaq gave us the buying opportunity, then I would want to come down and have a look at Nvidia. I'd want to look at Amazon and those kind of markets, because you might trade a market or a stock which is really a great stock and really very very healthy, but be in a position that it can't really make any gains because its overall indice is in the doldrums. So I'd really like to see the Nasdaq fall significantly and then look to see if we can pick up some stocks. Now that will help greatly because I need to wait for the pound to settle down, and hopefully if this happens over the course of a few months and maybe the course of the rest of the year, then the pound would have settled down and I'll know exactly what the value of what I'm buying is. But this would suggest to me that we might be in a little bit of a tricky position to be buying US stocks at this particular stage. I wouldn't mind waiting a little while longer.
That's the game we're in, isn't it? Waiting. And I think no better time than right now to be doing exactly that. It's time to observe rather than a time to play, in my humble opinion. Spectators.
Yeah. I agree. Do you know what? There are sell signals here for the Nasdaq. I'm looking at some other indicators here, and there are suggestions that the Nasdaq could come off here. So actually, I think investment decisions should be left on hold regardless of everything else. So let's see if we can get a wider picture. And it's interesting because you can forget the fundamentals, if you like, of any of these stocks. I mean, I personally would be looking at the fundamentals of anything that you're interested in and making sure that you've got a healthy stock overall, and then checking to see whether the wider indice looks like it's in a buy area. And if it's not, which I don't think this does right now, it looks like it's in a bit of a no man's land area, then we can just put those stocks on the back burner, but we'd still consider them. So if Christo is listening, then I think Amazon could be he is, yes. Splunk. No, I haven't heard of Splunk. And I will look into Splunk, but I think that's the... Okay, cool. Yeah, I'll look into those as well. Let's do some work on those. I think maybe what we should be doing is getting a list of stocks that we quite like. Nvidia is definitely on my radar. And after that, we can look at the overall picture, the big picture, as in the indice, and see whether there's a likelihood that indice is going to weaken. If it is, then we sit on the sidelines for a bit, and then when it's a potential buy area, then we can start getting our shopping trolleys out. The thing that I read on the video is that it's something to do with some AI storage. That's what they look to acquire. And they actually beat off a bid from another big company. I can't remember who it was right now, but it was pretty significant. The company that they managed to beat off for this particular deal was pretty significant. So I really like that as a company, Nvidia. So we can look into that a little further. But let's see if we can get the Nasdaq on a downturn first. See if it can create a shelf, and we can look into Nvidia, Amazon, Splunk, and Mellanox as well. Mellanox, if I'm pronounced that right.
That Splunk's got me going.
Oh yeah, you like the look of that?
The name.
Oh, the name. Yeah, good name. Do you know? Interesting thing about buying stocks, and this is absolutely true. You have to be careful when you get attracted to a name of a company, that you don't end up looking at the company's record through rose-tinted glasses because of the name. And it sounds really ridiculous, but that is actually what people sometimes tend to do, in as much that if I said to you, there are two companies, there's one called Splunk and there's one called Zangligabaka, which one, after we talk about both of them having a similar record, will you probably go and buy? And you might not be able to answer that right now, but I could almost guarantee you'll buy Splunk because it's easy to remember.
Yeah, true story. I used to pick dogs like that. When I used to be, well, this was long before I had any money, maybe about 10 or 11 or something. My old man used to drag me to the dogs because my grandfather was a greyhound trainer. And
Oh, okay.
you just sit there, but probably in my pajamas at that stage, I'm not sure.
Oh, I see. Yeah.
But I'd sit there just past the winning post and I'd watch the dogs go past, and sure enough, you'd pick number 5 or you'd pick number 6 or whatever, look, based on its looks.
Yeah.
And it's exactly the same scenario.
Yeah.
I like
Yeah.
this one because it looks good.
Yeah. So Chris is saying that Nvidia bid for Mellanox. That's the connection. They think Intel. So it's Intel. They will bid higher for it. So they might lose that deal. Interesting. I thought that deal had maybe gone through. So the move to the upside in Nvidia could actually be swallowed back up again. So maybe that story needs to unfold. So what are we going to do about tomorrow, mate? What's our plan? Are we going to be in, or are we going to be taking it off?
But yeah, we should decide now, shouldn't we? I suppose.
Yeah, just so everybody knows.
I think we'll come in
Okay.
and say hello, unless you've got something else to do.
No. I've always got something that I can do, but it's certainly something that I can put on the back burner. So it's no big deal.
No, take the day off then. Take the day off.
Okay.
Let the market deal with what it has to deal with, and we'll come back on Thursday and see what happens.
Okay, so that's the plan, guys. We're going to come back on Thursday. Particularly if this vote is refused. I think we let this market settle down. I'll be surprised if we get anything on this week anyway. But we'll come back Thursday. So no show tomorrow. Everybody take a day off. Don't look at your charts, and then let's come back and make some good decisions on Thursday instead.
I'm happy with that.
Okay.
I'm just looked through the 30-minute charts. Seriously, the charts that I even would choose to trade, the Aussies pretty much just telling me nothing at the moment. So I'm very happy to close my charts right now and open them up in the morning early Australian time and watch the fireworks as this vote takes place. But apart from that,
right.
I'm happy to close them until Thursday.
Okay, mate. Sounds good. All right, everyone. We'll be back Thursday, same trade time, same trade channel. Have a good day, rest of the day for you, mate, and a good day tomorrow. And we'll be back with an update on Thursday.
Happy days, guys. Have a good one. Bye for now.